Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Danvat Pranam, Saglories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, dear devotees, for joining us. Yes, Prabhuji, you can take over.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevayam Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakayam Chakshurun Militam Yenam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaham Namam Vishnu Padayam Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, thank you so much for logging in and showing interest in learning from Srimad Bhagavatam, though the subject matter is not very popular or very well desired to be, studied sometimes. And it is a very important topic for us to be consciously aware of, so that in our journey to Krishna consciousness, we know that we have some responsibility. So today is a very auspicious day in India, the day of Sharad Purnima. So those of you who are following Purnima system, technically the Kartik month starts from today. There are two systems, Purnima systems and Pratipat system. And those who follow Pratipat system, Kartik starts from tomorrow. But either way, we take full advantage. So we start from, Purnima system. So when we start in Purnima, it ends in Purnima. So starts in Sharad Purnima and in Rasa Purnima. So technically, in Vrindavan, everybody is completely engrossed in glorifying Krishna's pastimes. So we are, studying some hellish planets. So, but it's okay. It's also Srimad Bhagavatam. I guess the direct, straightforward formula is take shelter of Krishna and no need of any of these, agendas. But because we are preachers, because we are also supposed to be directing, guiding people to the right path along with guiding ourselves. So it is interesting that these topics are to be learned also. When I was preparing for this course, there are so many places Srila Prabhupada is describing about these things. Of course, the whole ethos of Srimad Bhagavatam is to glorify the process of Krishna consciousness, and in different pockets of purport, Srila Prabhupada is giving strong warnings. So anyway, we will learn them as we proceed. So as usual, we will have our Prabhupada Uvacha, and today's verse is from Bhagavad Gita, a very famous verse. We will discuss Bhagavad Gita verse 7.15. This is about the four types of miscreants that Bhagavad Gita is explaining. Namam dushkrutino muda prapadyante naradama mayaya apahrita jnana asuram bhavamashrata. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, who are lowest among mankind, and whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. Purport. I will read only a portion of the purport, and then we will go towards our discussions, and then we'll keep referring few Bhagavatam verses today to study the subject of today's context. It is said in Bhagavad Gita that simply by surrendering oneself unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality Krishna, one can surmount the stringent laws of material nature. At this point, a question arises: how is it that educated philosophers, scientists, businessmen, administrators, and all the leaders of ordinary men do not surrender to the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, the all-powerful personality of Godhead? Mukti or liberation from the laws of material nature is sought by the leaders of mankind in different ways and with great plans and perseverance for a great many years of birth, many years and birth. But if that liberation is possible simply by surrendering unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then why don't these intelligent and hardworking leaders adopt this simple method? The Gita answers this question very frankly. Those really learned leaders of society like Brahma, Shiva, Kapila, the Kumaras, Manu, Vyasa, Devala, Asita, Janaka, Prahlada, Bali, and later on Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya, Sri Chaitanya, and many others, who are faithful philosophers, politicians, educators, scientists, etc., surrender to the lotus feet of the Supreme Person, the all-powerful authority. Those who are not actually philosophers, scientists, educators, administrators, etc., but who pose themselves as such for material gain, do not accept the plan or path of the Supreme Lord. They have no idea of God. They simply manufacture their own worldly plans and consequently complicate the problems of material existence in their vain attempts to solve them. Because material energy is so powerful, it can resist the unauthorized plans of the atheists and baffle the knowledge of planning commissions. We will turn this purport further later, but we want to go a little deeper into our context today. So this conversation that we had last week, we had about discussed about different types of punishment. We classified around 9 different types, which we divided in 4 sections. So today we will discuss section 1, which is about the non-devotees who are not having any understanding or any knowledge about devotion, and they are also adharmic. So we discussed in the first section 2 types of people. One, who are non-devotees, which means who does not have any knowledge about bhakti, and who are adharmic. And those who are not having any knowledge about bhakti, but who are trying to be religious. So we discussed these two as a part of our first section. So what we will do is that we will take this section and try to dissect little more details to this. So the portion of the conversation that we may read today or discuss today may not be very sweeter as Srimad Bhagavatam's Krishna Katha. It may be little pictorially gory, as that's exactly how Bhagavatam explains. But we will go over that. So Kapila Dev is actually explaining in third canto Srimad Bhagavatam about the journey of the soul going towards hell. So Srila Prabhupada writes a very profound statement in fifth canto Srimad Bhagavatam 5:26:6, if I'm 5:26:6. Srila Prabhupada writes, he writes that one should not think Yamaraja is a fictitious or mythological character. He has his own abode, Pitraloka, of which he is the king. Agnostics may not believe in hell, but Sukadeva Goswami affirms the existence of Naraka planets, which lie between the Garbhotaka ocean and Patala Loka. Yamaraja is appointed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to see that human beings who violate his rules and regulations get punished accordingly, so that they will not repeat the mistake and do not violate his rules and regulations again. That's exactly what Srila Prabhupada writes there. So we need to understand that in our journey to Krishna consciousness, it is important that this concept, this understanding about the journey of whatever we call as road to hell or the journey to hellish planets is something that we all study at some point, and we may not dwell on them, or we definitely need to study them. So as a matter of fact, the Srimad Bhagavatam is giving the underlying reason. So we are going to discuss today's conversation into three types or three sets of reflections. The first set is about our journey to royal road to hell. That is exactly the word how Srila Prabhupada writes that, the reason and the journey. And number two, we will elaborate on this, who are all fitting into this category of number one type and number two types. And number third agenda is we will discuss about the concept of independence versus interdependence, which is the underlying reason for somebody to remain in this category. So to discuss about the journey of the soul, Srimad Bhagavatam, third canto, 30th chapter, very nicely in the conversation, Kapila Dev is explaining the descriptions of Naraka Loka. This is also described in 5th canto, 26th chapter. So typically, the word hell, the word Naraka, is directly associated with those who are not surrendered to God. So basically, a fundamental definition, why we read this shloka, is if somebody is falling into this four categories, somebody is falling into the category of Duskritina, any of the Duskritina, Maya, Apakrita Jnana, Naradama, Muda, or those who are atheist. So all of them, all these four types of men, they have one thing in common. Srila Prabhupada writes that they don't surrender to the Supreme Lord. They don't surrender to uh, the authorities. They have their own understanding. They have their own perspectives. They have their own, thinking. So, Srimad Bhagavatam says that if somebody is not surrendering to Krishna, so we are going to discuss about the journey of road to hell. The very first point that we need to know that authority of death, who is Yamaraj, has this clear-cut plan. So typically, when we need to surrender to God, if we do not surrender to God, who is authority for the entire existence, if we deny his authority, then we are forced to surrender to this authority. So this road to hell is not someone's personal choice. This road to hell is something that a person is forced into it because he is not accepting or surrendering to God. I don't surrender to the Supreme Lord. I don't surrender. I don't acknowledge the, that's why Prabhupada writes in the, purport that we just read, that it is but obvious that somebody has to surrender to the Lord. And it is the most easiest process, but the most learned men, they don't do it. So, it is explained that Naraka Loka, or the hellish planets, is the abode of Yama, the god of death, authority of death. After the death, the messenger of Yama, called Yamadutas, bring all the beings to the court of Yamaraj. Again, this is applicable for our section 1 category, which means those who are non-devotees, adharmic. We will also discuss about those who are non-devotees but religious. We'll come about them. But primarily, this is applicable to those who are completely adharmic. So, the word hell or the Naraka Loka, where Yamaraja is the controller, so he has got his own arrangement, right? And Yamaraja, as a lord of justice, is also called Dharmaraj because it is his duty to protect the Dharma and depends upon somebody who has done seemingly a good deed. That is why we say somebody who has done religiously correct, he sent them to Swarga Loka. One who is morally, ethically, religiously wrong, he sends them to, Naraka Loka. So that is situated in the lower planetary systems up till Patala Loka. There are close to 28 different types of hells. And we will quickly read about few of them. We may not read all of them. Few of them to just get a glimpse of what is the gravity of the mistakes that we do. So, the first point with respect to road to hell or even road to heaven or road to spiritual world is to accept the authority, but because we are in this context, there is an authority. It is not somebody just out of their whims and fancies. It is, some things are being done. These hellish planets are ruled by Yamaraj, who is the son of sun god. And he has his own, personal messengers. He has his own arrangements. Generally, all living beings, including humans and animals, go to Yama's abode upon death where they are judged. Here it refers to those human beings who are not surrendering to God. Those who have surrendered to God, those who have surrendered to Krishna, for them, this conversation is slightly different. That is our second category onwards. Our section 1, the section 1 of people is those who have not surrendered to God. So they are generally taken to the court of Yamaraj, where they are analyzed about their activities. So whether they are going to get moksha or they are going to get, naraka. So I'm going to read something from third canto, 30th chapter. The subtle body of the soul going to hell is at the time of death covered with a body suitable for punishment. Yatna Deha, having the same shape as the previous gross body. If the suffering of some hell is too much, he seems to die, but the Yatana Deha cannot die because it is made of subtle element, mind, intelligence, and false ego. So the second point that we need to discuss, that we need to understand, is about Yatana Deha. So you can read this from 3:30:20. So what happens is that this authority of death depends upon our action. He sends up or down, but definitely he prepares a body suitable for punishment. The body suitable for punishment is to, as Prabhupada writes, is suitable so that we don't die. Technically, the descriptions, if you see, that a person has to go through this and he will not be able to sustain this in the normal course, but he is given a special blessings or special arrangement that he cannot die. So every living entity generally is covered with gross body and subtle body, but this Yatna Deha is actually a subtle body, which means the soul has to be going through this. Because the soul directly doesn't get the suffering, but because of the presence of the soul, the subtle body, the Atma Deha, it has to go through these kind of necessary pain. So when the person is in the material world, he commits a sinful action. The subtle body will look very sinful. The person will be going through some sort of a pain and pleasure whilst he is living. But after his death, his arithmetic, his balance sheet is worked out, and at the time of death, when death actually happens, the gross body is separated from the subtle body, and the Yamadutas drag the soul and his impure subtle body out of the temporary gross body onto the road to hell. So what happens is that when the person is died, the gross body is separated and impure subtle body along with the soul is dragged by Yamadutas. So as a criminal is arrested for punishment by constables of the state, a person engaged in criminal sense gratification is similarly arrested by Yamadutas, who bind him by the neck with strong rope, cover his subtle body so that he may undergo severe punishment. So typically the scene is what we may have watched in movies, how criminals are dealt. There is no fun in carrying or dealing with such people. So it's very very much obvious that he is. The subtle body doesn't want the punishment because the constitutional nature of the soul is such that the soul wants to always enjoy, to be happy. But then unfortunately, a person who has not been responsible in his life has to go through this punishment. So now the journey is like this. The journey is the dying man after the death, because he's still conscious. The dying man, uh, he doesn't know what's going on with him. He doesn't know what is going to, be happen. So at the death, he sees the messenger of Lord of Death come before him, their eyes full of wrath, and in great fear, he passes stool and urine. 3:30:19 Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is step 1. 3:30:19. What happens is that when the soul is leaving, he sees the messenger. So that is why sometimes we get to hear, even in the case of our famous Ajamila's pastimes, the descriptions of Yamadutas are given. They are not very beautiful looking like Vishnudutas. They are meant to, be scary. So it is explained, Kapiladeva is explaining. He is explaining this because he is eventually going to explain about the glorious aspect of devotional service. So once we know that these are all the scary part of it, and the wonderful aspect of devotional service is that these ill effects, these difficulties are in 1 second get eradicated just by smaranena vinashyati. Koti janma kritam papam smaranena vinashyati. You don't need to go through all these things. Anyway, coming back. So the subtle body is getting separated and Yamadutas appeared. So they have a very clear-cut agenda. So when they take the Chaitanya Charitamrita explains, formerly the king's men would take criminal in a boat in the middle of the river. They would dunk him in by grasping a bunch of his hair and thrusting him in completely underwater. And when he was almost suffocated, the king's constable would take him out of the water and allow him to breathe for some time. And then they would again dunk him in water to suffocate. This sort of punishment is inflicted upon the forgotten soul by Yamaraja as described in the verses. So while carrying the soul to the Yamaduta, Yamaloka, so what happens is that while passing on the road, he is bitten by dogs and he can remember the sinful activities of his life and he is thus terribly distressed. So I would say from verse number 3:30:19 to 3:30:25 is what these descriptions are. So what happens is that this is when all the mistakes that we had done, which we had not even thought that were mistakes, which we thought that probably we are some independent human being, we thought that we are going to be enjoying. So these mistakes are now going to be remembered. You remember them. The picture is shown. It is not that you are just dragged just like that. You are shown that this is the mistake you did, this is the mistake you did, this is the mistake you did, this is the mistake you did. And Kapiladeva explains, while passing on the road, he is bitten by dogs and he can remember the sinful activities of his life. So that is very, very scary part of it. So the idea is that the pain of that experience is something that is going to be real. Now comes the aspect of the different classifications of hellish planets, who is sent where. So you can even go further up. This whole chapter you can go up till 28. So the whole experience of that soul going through this is explained in 28 different types of hell. I will just read some of them just for the sake of clarity. Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto 26 gives this details. The 28 different types of hell are Kamishra, Andata Mishra, Raurava, Maharaurava, Kumbhipaka, Kala Sutra. So like that, there are 26 different types of hell. So these 28 different types of hell are meant for 28 different types of functions. So I will just, give one example. A person who appropriates another's legitimate wife, children or money is arrested at the time of death by the fierce Yamaduta, who bind him with a rope of time and forcefully throw him into his hellish planets known as Tamishra. So, the destination of a person who slyly cheats another man and enjoys his wife and children is the hell known as under the Mishra. A person who accepts his body as self, works very hard day and night for money to maintain his own body and the body of his wife and children. While working to maintain himself and his family, he may commit violence against other living entities. Such a person is forced to give up his body and he is put into Raurava. And punishment in the hell called Maharaurava is compulsory for a person who maintains his own body by hurting others. In this hell, Ruru animals known as Kravyada torments him and eats his flesh. So these are all certain descriptions which I guess one has to just go through this. There is no great fun in reading these details because it is very, very scary, but it is important that such punishments are given. So 28 different hells are designated. The bottom line that Srimad Bhagavatam is trying to explain, the bottom line that Srimad Bhagavatam wants us to know is about a very fundamental aspect, is that we are always responsible, answerable, and accountable. So the mistake of modern civilization, the major mistake, especially those who are subscribing to Bollywood's ideologies, is such that they think that there is no next life. So this is the science of reincarnation, the concept of reincarnation that Srila Prabhupada very clearly explains, Srimad Bhagavad Gita very clearly explains, is missing. So the concept of reincarnation being not understood. So these are the 6 points that I want to highlight as a part of our first agenda, is that the road to hell, number one, it is not by our choice that we want to go there. We are forced to go there. And there is an authority, Yamaraj as an authority who is governing this function. And when we say road to hell, it is something that by design, a person who is denying the existence of the Supreme Lord and person who is committing different types of heinous sinful activities are forced into. So our 6 points with respect to road to hell are, number one, there's an authority and who is fully authorized to punish us. Number two, for punishing us, he is giving us a necessary body called Yatana Deha, which is the subtle body which will not get mitigated, which will not die. And third, the way it happens is the gross body is separated at the time of death. The gross body is separated from the impure subtle body. Why impure subtle body? Because our intelligence, false ego, and mind are completely engrossed in self-centered materialistic thinking. So Yamarajas and Yamadutas somehow drag this subtle body and soul out of the gross body at the time of death. And the journey is explained from verse number 19 through 25, 28, where it is explained that when the soul is being dragged, some dogs are going to bite and they are going to have a different painful experience, and the soul is not going to enjoy this journey because this journey is full of suffering, and he is given all remembrances about his past life. He is not past life, remembering about all the activities that he has done, which are wrong, which are not supposed to have been done. So all of those things are, given as it is explained that they are clearly saying that because of this mistake, you are punished. And then Emaraj, he classifies, depends upon the gravity of the offenses. Remember our few sessions earlier, Prabhupada explains that mode of ignorance pushes us to this particular situation. But that too, there are three different gravity. Somebody who is unaware, who is completely in a very innocent, but then got into these acts because of wrong association, because of certain things. They have similarly, relatively less punishment than those who are voluntarily and willingly trying to commit this. So the gravity of the punishments also vary, depends upon the gravity of the mistakes. So 28 different hells are designated, where all we are given is only punishments, and these punishments are given, the period and amount and the gravity and the depth are very pictorially nicely explained. And the last but not least, with respect to the road to hell, is this has happened because the soul does not have the concept of reincarnation. So the only difference, or one of the important difference that makes a person in the category, this is our section 1 type of people, with first category. But the only difference with the first category with the second category is section 1 category 2, where I am his non-devotee but religious. So he is also treated by Yamaraj, as we just read, that Yamaraj decides based on it, he sends to Swargaloka or Narakaloka. And this category of people, what is the good thing that these category of people have? These category of people have, number one, they have some understanding of reincarnation, and they have some surrender to authority. So this is religious. Religious meaning they are dharmic for self-centered reason. I am self-centered, but I will use religion to facilitate my self-centeredness. So this is not considered bad because mere swarthi hoon. I have my personal agenda. But then because of me accepting the authority, because I have believed in reincarnation, I choose to certain action which will give me some results. So these types of people, they don't directly breaks the law. They inadvertently they may break the law, or they may try to do punya karma, because of which they will be sent to heavenly planets. So, but Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita very clearly, Abrahma Bhuvana Loka Punar Avartino Arjuna Mam Upetyat Kaunteya Punar Janmana Vidyate. So the good thing is, or the information is, those who are going to heavenly planets as well as hellish planets, all of them, their punya or papa are going to vanish, evaporate after a point in time. So the suffering soul is also going to suffer for a period of time, and the people in the heavenly planets are also going to come back to, after enjoyment, come back to it. So that is why those who are intelligent, they will not choose either of this path, because both are short-lived or both are temporary. They have their own period in time, whether it is a few hundred years or a few thousand years, but they are definitely going to be short-lived, and they will come back. Punaravartino Arjuna, Mamupetya Kaunteya, Punarjanmana Vidyate. So my first reflection or the first lesson with respect to this particular category is to understand this is all we will discuss about the non-devotees, because there are more technical informations, but we will simply for the sake of limiting it to simplicity, we will just limit, because we have a lot more wonderful things to know, and these are also important to know. That's why we are touching this part. The second reflection, the second aspect of our today's reflection is the types of people. So this is the first one. So what are the types of people who fall into this category that we just read as our meditation today? Namam dushkrutino muda prapadyante naradama maya apahrita jnana asurim bhavamashrita. So Prabhupada writes in the purport some interesting definitions. So 4 types of people fall in this category. Number 1, Muda, fools. Srila Prabhupada writes, they want to enjoy the fruits of their labor by themselves, and so do not want to part with them for the supreme. A typical example of the beast of burden is the ass. This humble beast is made to work very hard by this master. The ass does not really know for whom he works so hard day and night. He remains satisfied by filling his stomach with a bundle of grass, sleeping for a while, and under a fear of being beaten by his master. So Srila Prabhupada writes, most often, those who work very hard day and night to clear the burden of self-created duties say that they have no time to hear of the immortality of the living beings. So it is so stupid that we, not realizing that what are we made of and what are we supposed to be doing, we are simply suffering by choosing to work day and night. So both during this existing in this world, they work pretty hard to meet their ends, and also after their death, because of their not giving importance to the Supreme Lord, they are suffering. So in Bhagavad Gita, in one of the purports, Srila Prabhupada writes few types of men who are who are very dangerous, about whom one need not be worried about. So these miscreants, that is why they are all called miscreants. So Muda is one of them, because the association with Muda is something very risky, because you will become a fool as well. So the second category of people about which Prabhupada is talking about is Naradama. Miscreant is Naradama, is lowest amongst mankind. And these lowest amongst mankind, Srila Prabhupada writes, the civilized human beings are those who have regulative principles of social, political, and religious lives. Those who are socially and politically developed but who have no religious principles must be considered naradamas. Nor is religion without God religion, because the purpose of following religious principle is to know the supreme truth or the man's relation with him. In Gita, the personality of Godhead clearly states that there is no authority above him and that he is the supreme truth. The civilized form of human life is meant for the man's reviving the lost consciousness of his eternal relationship with the supreme truth. Whoever loses this chance is classified as Naradama. Why lost amongst mankind? Because he is out of social, political, and religious life. He is giving importance to social and political, but no religious life. Lowest amongst mankind. And these are the people who are highly selfish. In Bhagavad Gita, elsewhere, Prabhupada writes, poison giver, one who sets fire to the house, one who attacks with deadly weapons, one who plunders riches, one who occupies another's land, one who kidnaps someone's wife. So these are all the people. By punishing them, you will not get any. By punishing them, by accusing them, by talking ill about them, in the sense that by trying to warn about them, there is no problem, because they are miscreants. You are supposed to warn everyone about them. So this is Naradama. And third, Srila Prabhupada talks about is Maya Apahrita Jnana. Maya Apahrita Jnana. One whose intelligence stolen away. Intelligence stolen away by Maya, which means, Prabhupada writes here, I'll just read one small portion. Says, all unauthorized interpretations of the Gita by the class of Maya Aparta Jnana means they may sound, they may see, they may appear to be religious, but they are trying to do something anti-religious, or trying to misdirect a person towards materialistic life or wrong life. So ones whose intelligence is taken away, stolen away, there are a great number of Maya Aparta Jnana at the present moment. That's what Srila Prabhupada writes. Those erudite knowledge has been nullified by the influence of illusion energy. So many great philosophers, poets, literates, scientists, they may be classified as intelligentias, but because they use their intelligence for their self glorification, self-interest, self-aggrandizement, so they are classified as one of the people who are supposed to be punished. And these people are classified and punished because they take their intelligence superior over the authority of the Lord. They take their intelligence superior, or they think that their intelligence can be such that they can challenge the God. They think that their power, their resources are such that they can directly attack the Lord and try to misdirect. In fact, these are the people who are, who are trying to take people away from religiosity. They give their own ideologies to take people away from Krishna, away from God consciousness, away from spirituality. And the fourth, Muda Naradama Maya Apahrita Jnana Asura, demons, which means atheist. So the reason why we are discussing this, second agenda is that anyone who falls in this category will definitely go to hell, but anyone who associates with this category, associates with them, is also at risk. So it is not only important that we are not supposed to be part of any of this category, but it is also important that we are not supposed to associate with them. So most of us in this material world, most of us, we are surrounded by, especially in the modern day scenario, we are surrounded by these types of four people. We are surrounded by either fools or Naradama or Maya Aparta Jnana or Asura. So while writing about Asura, Srila Prabhupada writes, this class is openly atheistic. Some of them argue that the Supreme Lord can never descend upon this material world, but they are unable to give any tangible reason as to why not. There are others who make him subordinate to impersonal feature, although the opposite is declared in Gita. Envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the atheist will present a number of illicit incarnations manufactured in the factory of his brain. Such persons, whose very principle of life is to decry the personality of Godhead, cannot surrender to the Supreme Lord. So the principle here is that these types of men are somebody who are direct agents of sending us to hell. So they are, with associating with them, we are directly punished. We are directly punished. So these four types of people are somebody with whom we are supposed to be extremely careful. And as practicing devotees, we need to know, we need to save innocent from the above miscreants. So that brings in our, last, reflection, which is about why do these people behave. So it brings in the topic of independence versus interdependence. Because spirituality means interdependence, and the miscreants always use the word independence. We will, just quickly go through this learning in 5 different perspectives. So in 5 different perspectives, let us understand independence versus interdependence. Independence from the materialistic viewpoint, it is considered as advancement. That if I am independent of God, independent of authority, I am the authority, I decide what I want, I consider it as an advancement. But from the spiritualistic perspective, it is a biggest risk, biggest problem, because I am not independent. I am always dependent. I am always subordinate to the authorities. So one aspect of it, people say, is about independence is advancement, giving advancement as the reason. The second thing, they say that independence is needed, in a sense. It is a must. I have to utilize, because how will I enjoy if I am under somebody's authority? I am not given some freedom. But the reality is, if you are independent without surrendering to any authority, you are prone to commit mistakes. There are 4 defects, and one of the defect is you are prone to commit mistakes. Because of the mistakes, you will be going through the cycle of birth and death. Asradadanaha purusha dharmasyasya param tapa aprapyamam nivartante mrityu samsara vartmani. They go through the cycle of birth and death. So from that standpoint, that it is what they claim, materialistic view and spiritual view of independence. Materialistic view thinks that it is an advancement. Spiritualistic view thinks that, no, it is not advancement, rather it is a risk. And materialistic thinks that independence is a must, and spiritualistic view is that independence is a risk, is a fault. And materialistic view says independence is a way of life to bring the best in me. But it is a risk for becoming adharma. My being independent, I may commit sinful activities. We say give options to explore. But here, spiritualistic people think that no, it may appear very hunky-dory, but what is unknown territory that I do not know is always going to be challenging. And last but not least, independence. People think that why do I need to, why do I need to surrender, sacrifice? I need not sacrifice, I need not surrender. The, hesitancy, denial of surrender, understands surrender is needed. The reason why we are discussing these 5 points are these propensity will eventually lead us towards whichever way, whether we are going to go to the next category of being a sadhaka or we are going to go in the category of miscreants. Because this is a thread for our next session, wherein we are going to discuss about the second section of people who are, a practicing devotee. At least they started accepting God. They started, giving oral reception towards spiritual subject matter. So materialistic viewpoint says that being independent is advancement, being independent is must, being independent is a way of life, being independent is an option for me to explore. And why should I surrender? But those who are slightly intelligent, they get to realize, oh, if I'm independent, if I'm not surrendering to the authority, there is a risk and it is a fault, it is adharmic and it is unknown. I do not know where I am going. And finally, without surrender, I have a big problem and I will need guidance to, make sure that my responsible journey is done. So this raises to interdependency. Interdependency to God, godly, and action towards God. So I am trying to become God conscious. I am trying to perform action towards God consciousness. And that way my life is interdependent. So I am ready to go through the necessary stage of, endeavor and purification. So to put in a perspective, to summarize our entire conversation today with respect to all the sets of people that we know, these 4 types of people that we spoke about are very dangerous ones, and they are the ones who are supposed to be classified as miscreants according to Srimad Bhagavatam, and we need to stay away from them. So we discussed 3 types of 3 reflections today. First reflection is about the royal road to hell. In the sense, Bhagavad Gita explains lust, greed, anger, envy, ego, pride, illusion. These 6 things are 6 vices. And lust, greed, anger, if they are not properly managed, if they are not properly, controlled, then definitely a person is going to be walking towards hellish planets. So both Kapila Deva is explaining this and Sukadeva Goswami explains to Parikshit Maharaj in 5th canto. So the idea is that the road to hell is very clear. Understand there is an authority. That authority dictates what he has to do, and that authority does have his own men who will carry the orders of the authority of that Yamaraj. And we discussed how to such souls who are going to be punished, they are given yatna deha, and the gross body is separated from the subtle body. The subtle body is separated from the gross body, and they are dragged. And we spoke about how during the time of dragging, they are given remembrance about all the past mistakes that they have done. And it depends upon the types of mistake, they are put in 28 different types of hells. We spoke about them. Please read 5th canto, 26th chapter. So Srimad Bhagavatam, which clearly talks about all these types of different types of hells. And please note that the concept of reincarnation is very important, because this classification of people, though they don't subscribe to reincarnation because they don't believe that there is rebirth, they do whatever they do and they are finally, they are stuck. So this is about the type of people who are non-devotees, who are adharmic. But there are some people who are non-devotees, but they are trying to be religious. The only good thing is that they accept reincarnation, they accept some authority, and they are ready to, they don't directly breach the authority of the Lord, but they function, they use dharma for their self-centeredness. They try to think that I will worship, I will perform whatever I want to perform, whatever puja part, whatever, ceremony, whatever ritual that I do it for the sake of me being happy, me going to Swarga, me trying to enjoy them. So Yamaraj deals with them as well. Only those who are liberated and above and beyond, they don't go to Yamaraj, they go to different agents. They are taken care by Vishnu Dutas. But those who are not liberated and those who are not devotees, they are dealt by Yamaraj. Yamaraj is a devotee, Yamaraj is a Mahajana, but he is a, Dharma Raja, he is also the authority of death. So that is the journey towards hell. And to just make it much, concise, we have not dealt on all the individual descriptions of 28 different types of hell and how the body is given different types of punishment. But it is worth a read once at least. So 330, 19 through 28, as well as chapter 5, 5th canto, 26th chapter. At least one reading or twice reading is important. At least this will help us to classify the types of people, which Bhagavad Gita is very easily summarized. Muda, Naradama, Maya, Aparta, Jnana, and Asura. So one is these 4 types of people are, miscreants, but those who are associating with these 4 types of people are also miscreants. So hence the duty of a practicing devotee, those who are attending this course, is that we need to save innocent people from them, everything Krishna consciousness. These miscreants are around, whether they are in our office place, they are in our surroundings, they are in our neighborhood, they are sometimes in our family. So please save the innocent from these miscreants. And third is, the reason why a miscreant is because of him being, not knowing the differentiate between independence versus interdependence. They think independence is advancement, independence is must, independence is a way of life, and they give independence as an option to explore life, and they are hesitant to surrender to any authority because independence is gone. On the other side, interdependence is actually a spiritualistic option. It is a wonderful option by which I can be a spiritual person, and I know the risk of being independent. I know it will put me to an adharmic route, and it's completely unknown, and hence it is challenging. So it is important that we somehow or other become godly, which means Krishna consciousness, and perform actions that are associated with godliness. So with this, we will stop here. So we have discussed about section 1 of punishment, which is about non-devotees, adharmic, non-devotees, dharmic, and how they are, treated. And these information is what most important. Independence was interdependence. And the moment we understand our need of being interdependent to the authority of the Supreme Lord, I guess we are in the safe zone. I will stop here and take up any questions or comments. Please, let me know if there are any questions or comments. Hare Krishna, Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So there's a question by Rachna Mataji. Is it not true that we don't have to actually leave the body to experience hell? The darkest regions of ignorance, material world are like being in hell. So that's the first question. There are two questions. So yes, the answer is true that being in this material world is itself a kind of a punishment. Actually, the punishment is two graded. One is there is something called as immediate punishment. Like it's like a police catch hold of a thief. That's why I read that portion from Chaitanya Charitamrita, where it said that the king, when he is catching hold of the criminal, the constables, they take them and dip them in water. And so it is like constable when he catches, when the police catches, they give a few whacks. So our punishment in all these hellish planets are some sort of a punishment where we will have to go through them for a limited period in time, depends upon the gravity of the problem. And over and above that, finally, we are given an opportunity to come out of this cycle. That is why we are given human form of life. So when we are given human form of life, that human form of life is given also based on some arithmetic, based on some calculation. So in human form of life, the suffering you go through is meant to at least give you an awareness saying that you have suffered in the past. This place is not an intelligent place for a gentleman to live. So work hard towards exiting the cycle of birth and death. So in human form of life, the suffering is given. It is like a warning sign or something that is given to the soul to say, hey, you have suffered in the past. You are in hellish life and different lower species of life. Now, you see, you are now seeing this pain. You have some intelligence. So that pain is only very superficial in that sense in comparison to what we had been through. Agreed that the pain in the human form of life is also a pain, but that is a kind of a pain which will help us to think if we associate with the right man. Am I making some sense, Namaji? There. And second question is, what is the wisdom inspiring Ashwatthama? We will be discussing that, probably in the next session or the next after that. We are going to discuss from the next section onwards. We will discuss the nature of that, classification and also examples associated with them. Who are all the personalities, pastimes associated with them? Because for this particular section, we do not have any specific examples because obvious examples are right in front of us, the normal materialistic world. But Bhagavatam gives example for all the other sections. Bhagavatam has given description about these sections that we spoke about, but for all the other sections, we have pastimes. So Ashwatthama being spared is only because Draupadi, not Draupadi, sorry. Because he was a Brahmana son. There is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. This is 1757, Srimad Bhagavatam. If you read, it says this: cutting the hair from his head, depriving him of his wealth, and driving him from his residence are the prescribed punishments for the relative of a Brahmana. There is no injunction for killing the body. So, the idea is that even when giving a punishment, our varna is given some weightage. Because somebody is born in a Brahmana family, or at least here in this case, Ashwatthama was a very important member for the Kauravas, because he is a son of Dronacharya. Dronacharya is the guru of Pandavas. So there is some, weightage. Like why Nalagwara Manigriva is given such a punishment that they could see Krishna, because if you see, they are also miscreants. Nalagwara and Manigriva, by the classification of miscreants, that's what we will take all these use cases in our next, few sessions. But the idea is that one is being a miscreant, but even if you are a miscreant, you come under whose purview? I am a demon, but killed by Krishna. I am a demon. I got blessings cursed by a self-realized soul. Then I don't need to go to Yamaraj. I have a different journey. So the idea is that here we are these category of people are so unfortunate. They are neither having an audience with the devotee nor having an opportunity to come in contact with Krishna directly face to face, that they have to go through this celestial life. So such people are considered the most unfortunate ones. So Ashwatthama is actually punished the same way how Rukmi is punished. So Rukmi, it's very important that these types of people's punishments are equally insulting, equally humiliating, equally charging them, because by those punishments their necessary education is given, and Brahmana's position and power and weightage is also appreciated at the same time. Am I making sense here?
Yes, thank you very much, Prabhu. Very nice. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Any other questions or comments or reflections from this current context?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. This is Kalyan. Thanks for the wonderful lecture. It was for me, it was very informative, and there are a lot of doubts which unclear from my end. Thank you for that. I have one point I request to elaborate. You mentioned about subtle body, right?
Yes.
Does soul has any control on subtle body? And if it has, whatever the decision which I make, the subtle body makes me to do the decision, if it is a bad decision or if it is a good decision. Because the subtle body is doing something wrong, why soul has to suffer?
For this, thank you for this question, Prabhu. For this, we'll have to go through this, why did we leave spiritual world? We never had this impure subtle body. In fact, even in the spiritual world, we have a subtle body called transcendental, subtle body. Here it is called as impure subtle body. So Prabhupada writes in one place in Srimad Bhagavatam that in the spiritual abode, a spirit soul has got, true ego, pure mind and pure intelligence. The reason why we are suffering this material world is about the misuse of that independence, minuscule independence that is given. The independence that we spoke today is different from the independence that's generally spoken in the general context. Every jivatma, every spirit soul is given some independence to make informed decisions, to make decisions that are supposed to be utilized for engaging the soul properly. So because of the misuse of the independence, the soul has come to this material world. As soon as the soul came to this material world, our subtle body is becoming impure. And because of the impure subtle body, so at no point in time, the same question has been asked, similar question has been asked a couple of weeks before this forum, is that the soul may not directly be the recipient of the suffering, but because the soul is entangled in the subtle body, the soul has to go through this journey. So the corrective course of action, can the soul takes independent decision? Yes, by your consciousness switching towards, yes, I will not associate with miscreants. I will not associate with so-and-so people. I will not associate with certain types of action by which you can exit the cycle of birth and death. So the soul, because of being stuck inside the impure subtle body, an impure gross body, all the necessary pain. Otherwise, the soul is supposed to enjoy with Krishna. The soul is stuck in this jail. So can the soul do something? Yes, the soul can dovetail his consciousness. Soul can, because of the presence of consciousness, because of the presence of a spirit soul, a person can think, the person can desire. So what the soul can do by the way of desiring, by the way of thinking, by the way of planning, so it can definitely try to quit this cycle of birth and death. So that is why we say that the decision of the soul is about to associate, to swing towards higher dimensional science, to swing towards spiritual association, spiritual set of activities. So that way he can exit the cycle of birth and death. Otherwise, the impure subtle body will drag this soul everywhere. Did I answer this, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you.
Rupali, yes, impure subtle body means impure consciousness. So impure consciousness is the subtle aspect of it. So impure subtle body means my intelligence is bad, my mind is polluted, my false ego is at its peak. My intelligence is self-centered towards bodily consciousness. My mind is centered towards sense gratificatory propensity, and my false ego at its peak. And the soul may not directly be the enjoyer or a painstaker, but soul is kind of what you call as it is now locked inside that prison of impure subtle body. So and the yatana deha means this body is given some importance so that we can go through the punishment properly. And by okay, the question is, when somebody is in the hellish planets, so what is the way to come out? It is either by the mercy of some Vaishnavas, because great souls like Narada Muni and great personalities, they travel everywhere. So by the mercy of Vaishnavas, they can go and try to relieve these souls, like how a president or the chief of the country has got the authority to relieve people from the prisons. So sometimes great personalities, they come and relieve us. Otherwise, we would have suffered for ages. So these great personalities' mercy, we can get relieved of this punishments also. Otherwise, there is no hope. So the soul, by the choice, the soul's agenda is to choose, use their independence correctly. So can I choose? Can I repent? So can I try to push myself to the right set of association? Of course, the soul has to choose the what do you call as the intelligence help only, which is already in a distressed, diseased state. But if by some arrangement, if by some experiential knowledge, oh my God, yesterday's my decision was wrong, so let me try to correct my decision and try to go towards righteousness, there is some hope. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so thank you so much, and we will take this up from this point. Next week we will discuss the next section, and we'll take example pastimes from Srimad Bhagavatam and try to learn some lessons from there. Granthraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Vanchakalpatarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhubhya evacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah, Anantakoti Vaishnavanda ki jai. Kartik Vrata ki jai. So wish you all a very wonderful, Damodara month, and please make sure that even if you have, not been very serious, this is an opportunity for all of us to, get a bit serious and somehow save so many souls from getting into this, falling into this trap of sinful life. So it is a duty to save ourselves, and please go and give. That is why even somebody just offer a ghee lamp to Damodara, so that much we can help them, so they are saved from this, all the 28 different types of hellish lives. Otherwise, bichara, they may have to go through so much of pain. So let us be very helpful towards ourselves as well as other suffering souls. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.